Welcome back to Movie Deputy Reviews, where we interrogate movies in depth for their plot and their content. And I want to thank all of you who made it through yesterday's review. I have really gotten a bunch of mixed feedback on that. You know, you touch on a nerve when people take the time to message you directly and tell you what they thought of the review. I have had a couple people thank me, and I have gotten a lot more hate. So I normally don't touch on that a whole lot, but just the overwhelming response that I had on yesterday's review was just like, wow. I mean, the people did not hold back. And okay, I understand you love the movie, but I put these reviews out there for everybody. And just because it may be content that you love, that doesn't mean it's content for everybody. And that's one of the biggest reasons that I do this. Number one, because I love movies. And number two is just for this reason, because there are people who feel very passionately about movies. And just because you feel passionately about it does not mean that it's for everybody. And that really rubs people the wrong way sometimes. And unfortunately, today's movie is going to do that in a different way, for a completely different reason. But so I'm honestly expecting by at least later today to probably have some messages on this one too. And you know, if you have it on your heart to message me or it's bugging you, feel free, go ahead. I welcome that, because I do read all of the messages myself. I don't respond to all of them just because honestly that would be exhausting with the amount of messages that I get. But I'm at least glad that people are paying attention. And obviously, if you are listening through enough of the review to fully understand what I'm saying, enough to actually quote me, you know what? That's awesome. I appreciate that. So, you know what? Regardless of how you feel about yesterday's review, thank you. And I know that today's is going to ruffle some feathers too. I did give a disclaimer that we are talking about a horror movie today. And the horror movie that we are talking about is Bring Her Back. Now, obviously, this is a guilty rating. Sometimes I wonder if I should have a rating above guilty rating, because I typically say 13 and above. I would say this one, like full on adult, like 18, 19 above, even mid 20s and above, just because there are some definite trigger warnings in this one. By far, there are content warnings for this one. Now, you may be thinking with this that the score is going to probably suck with this too, but this is where I'm going to surprise you. I'm actually going to tell you the score before we get into the review. I am giving Bring Her Back a 7 out of 10 on the deputy scale. Now, yes, you did hear me right. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 on the deputy scale. Now, you may be thinking, but why? What? 7 is, memorable plot with questionable content. This one definitely hits on the latter, on that, the plot with the questionable content. And this movie was made by the same people who did Talk to Me. Now, if you go back and check out that review, that one sucked. I'm not even going to mollycoddle it or anything like that. There wasn't enough there. And so when I saw that this one was being made by the same people, honestly, I was dreading it. I was like dragging my feet going, sometimes there's just movies that they kind of follow the same lines. You take like the Wes Anderson movies or their Tarantino type movies, and they follow a theme. And so sometimes that's a good theme, sometimes that's a bad theme. And so, but it's rare that one can go from being something that's like Talk to Me, bordering on the 10 worst of the year list, to something like Bring Her Back, which at a 7, it's nowhere near going to be like the top movie of the year, or even in the top 10. But the fact that a story like this can rebound so seriously and take a turn down such a road that I was gripping my seat. If you've been a regular listener for a while, you know that I talk a little bit about an injury that I sustained in January, and that kind of knocked me out of the woods for a few months. But there is a scene in this that mimics so accurately something that happened to me. And it takes a lot to make me cringe, and that one made me cringe. Not to the point of nightmares. I've never had a movie get to me on that level. But there is a scene in this one that I just was like, ugh. So if you have a sensitive stomach, and if you are sensitive to blood and gore, if you are sensitive to strong language, if you are sensitive to movies about the occult, nothing about this movie is going to be for you at all in any way, shape, or form. And if you have any trauma from any foster type relationship or foster home or any type of thing that went along with that, and you have any trauma from that or anything with that kind of stuff that bothers you, or stories of things like that with kids, this takes it to a whole different level. So I'm going to get into why I'm talking about this movie this way. This one, you have a teenager and his younger sister. His younger sister is blind, or technically blind. She has a little bit of vision, but she's like mostly blind. And their father dies in kind of a horrific way. And so they are put into foster care, and it's learned that they're going to be split up. But the older brother speaks up because he doesn't want to be separated from his sister with the disability and everything. And so they found a foster home that will take him, because he's kind of a troubled kid a little bit. So finding a home that would keep them together is difficult. And the thing is, they find a home with somebody who used to be kind of in charge of placing with people with other foster families. So it's like, okay, this match is perfect. And so they go through and they're trying to kind of make a home for themselves in a little bit. And they're trying to fit in, and they're in a new place and a new person. Everything's new. Everything's different. And it's just strange because the foster mom takes a liking to the little girl from the very beginning in a very creepy way. And you can't quite put your finger on it right away. And then it starts to come out as the story is told of what happened to the foster mom's daughter. And what they slowly begin to realize is that there's another child here. But there was no mention of there being another child there. And so as things come out of who this other kid is and how the story is tied to this woman's daughter, it all starts to unfold. And it's a layered story, and it's built on one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other. So if you get up to go to the bathroom in this movie and you come back, you may be lost, because you're going to miss an entire layer to the story, because it builds on itself until you get this climax, and if you're finally at this point and you're like, yes. And then you realize that's not done, because that's not the climax of the story. And then you're gripping the edge of your seat, and you're just paying attention to every part of the story and the dialogue and the character interaction and what's happening. And it doesn't have a happy ending. Stories like this, there's not the typical like happy ending to these. There's a twist. There's something more to this. And we realize that this may not be the end of this story. It seems to be wrapped up, but there also seems to be more going on. So is this the beginning of something, or is this just it? And we are just left hanging at the end when everything is all said and done, when you are hoping for a bonus scene after the credits type ending of a movie, because this is dark. To say that this is dark, that this is occult, that this is, some people would say borderline demonic. Other people are, it is not for every viewer by any means. And this, like I said, I was not expecting much out of this at all, just because of Talk to Me and how that movie went. But this one, the level of depravity that they had to get in that mindset, which, okay, it's Hollywood. Does this really surprise you a whole lot? But this level of depravity that they have to get to take this story as far as they take it, it hasn't been done in a long time, not to this level. And like I said, there's even that one scene that I could not help but cringe at, just because it's like this. I know I've got listeners out there that I'm going to turn their stomachs if I get into any more detail on that. So I'm not going into any more details on that. But this is just... and this will definitely leave you unsettled by far. Now, like I said, if you miss part of it, even if you miss the very beginning of this, you're going to be lost. This is one of those ones that if you decide to watch this, you've got to commit to watching this all the way through, or to pause it if you have to get up if you're watching this at home, because every single layer matters if you're paying attention to the details. Now, if you're just looking for a jump scare movie that you don't really care about the story a whole lot, this kind of satisfies that too. But they're alienating a lot of their audience because of this content like this. So I hope that kind of explains a little bit why I'm giving this a 7 out of 10 on the deputy scale, and why movies such as this make me debate on whether or not I should have something that goes beyond the guilty rating, because this one, like I said, with the language and the content and just how dark this goes, that this will tend to shake a lot of people to their core. When I decided to go see this in the theater, also like everybody else, and there was a young couple, I'm assuming dating or early marriage. They were, I'm guessing, 20s, and they were leaving after the movie was over, and she goes, "Why would you bring me to this? I'm going to have nightmares." And I'm not making fun of anybody who has nightmares over movies such as this, but she was visibly shaken up. Like, she was, just her whole voice, you could hear the shake and the tremble in her voice when she was like, "Why did you bring me here?" And he was laughing, which, no, that it's not funny when you're scaring somebody that level. That is never funny. So please, if you're trying to do that to somebody, please do not do that. But if you are into this kind of movie and you're into that dark, just creep out factor, this is going to be a movie for you. If not, this is going to be one to avoid. So I hope, once again, that helps at least a little bit for some of my listeners. And as always, I'm hoping that if you've stuck around to this point, that you remember to like, subscribe, and share these reviews. Feel free to share them all over social media. If you want to take any of my quotes, just make sure to quote me and give me credit, aka Movie Deputy Reviews. I'm in a little bit of a goofy mood today, so forgive me on that. But again, if this is one that you're hoping to see, I hope you check it out. And if not, I hope that this helps save you the cost of a ticket and all the other costs that go along with it. So I'll be back soon. Bye-bye.